Actually, while my colleague from the multi-stakeholder advisory group from Trinidad and Tobago, I'm keen on hearing just how that group has been set up and what is its role. I assume it's advisory to government of Trinidad and Tobago, and is it supported, funded? Is it a public sector agency, or is it how is it? If you can just tell us what it is and what it does. Appreciate that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dev Gosain, and I'm representing the Trinidad and Tobago Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. It's a group that we have set up about 4 years now, and it involves basically all the stakeholders that are involved in the internet industry, be it academia, ISPs, IPX, civil society. We have about 12 members of different areas. There's some overlap. We try to cover all the areas. Funding is done by sponsorship. We also have TTNIC being one of our sponsors. And of course, the public agencies and so on. They sponsor our activities. And as you rightly said, we meet monthly, and we address issues. For example, we present papers on cybersecurity. There was something recently done by the government. We also have a position paper on it. We take all these proceedings to the various IGFs and other. While I'm attending this IGF, a couple of the members of the Johannesburg, yesterday they left Trinidad, they're to Johannesburg. In fact, while I'm, you see me here typing, all is on a Google Drive. Everybody has access to this document that I'm doing here in real time. Okay? That's basically what we do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any documentation you can share with us as a chapter as well, so that we could use it to inform the structure we have here in Barbados?
I'm so glad that you asked for that, Rodney. I think we would really like to share whatever we do. We have a website, mag.tt, okay? And it's on the website. A lot of the stuff, or the videos for IGF and so on are there. And you have my contact. Feel free to contact me anytime. I think we need to be collaborative. And I agree with Bernadette yesterday in her presentation. We really need, yes, we are small territories. Somebody mentioned we are archipelago. But we need to, while we are small individually, together we could have a serious voice, And Kevin was telling me earlier on that, he asked me if I come into LACNIC. I said, well, boy, I might be going to BVI because I didn't apply for the sponsorship, too early and whatever else. But anyhow, the fact of the matter is that, it's important that we really collaborate, we really gel together. I think there's strength in unity, and we must have share that common vision.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Swift from LACNIC, but I'm just asking this question in a personal capacity. So over the days, I first want to commend the steering committee for organizing this event. I think it was well executed, and I think it raised the level of awareness needed for internet governance in the Caribbean, especially when it pertains to what each stakeholder does. So this session with the DPP, for instance, I think that was very enlightening and instructive to many of us in the room. So my question to you is, and it tags onto what Dev was just saying about the TTMAG, do you have in mind a way of addressing this very complex matrix of internet governance issues? Because we know it occurs at various levels. We know of the issues occurring at the national level with respect to gender, and with respect to cybercrime. We know of the processes that internet organizations like mine and ICANN lead. Is there some sort of idea as to who are the theme leaders? And then further to that, further to what Dev is saying, where are the opportunities to leverage Caribbean networks? Because we know the Caribbean community comes together when it comes to participating in an ICANN event or an ARIN event. What does that look like in terms of what happens between this BBIGF and the next one?
Me? Okay. Well, I guess we'll take it one step at a time. But certainly the plan is we have the outcome document. We review the discussions and build on them. And this is why I was asking a colleague here, Dev from the TT Mag, what the structure was. Because we ourselves are trying to piece together what it should look like from our own national perspective. Because you heard the disparate, in the public sector, there's that disparity in terms of ICT matters. And we're also now really trying to build that multi-stakeholder community. So we have disparate organizations as well. That's reflected in the civil society. So we have the Barbados IT Professionals Association. We have the Information Security Systems Agency. And now we have the Barbados chapter of the Internet Society. And there have been others like the Information Society of Barbados as well, which Hallam would know about. So it's to bring these groups together now. And ISOC itself, we see ourselves as sort of that coordinating body to bring these players together because we have the support of the global organization. It lends financial support, it gives logistical support. So I think we are well placed to do that, but by all means that will be, even in terms of who takes the lead, should be as a result of a multi-stakeholder consultation. That's how I see it happening. But by all means, we will, we plan to do this again next year, and in between, we will be taking the input from here into the regional forum. So we will be represented at the Caribbean IGF and then at the global IGF as well.
I also wanted to add that there is actually some of the persons represented here in this room are also looking into utilizing some of the models used, for example, in Estonia. It's also recommended by the World Economic Forum, where countries have essentially an e-council that essentially is sort of responsible for driving their sort of like national digital agenda. And there are sort of discussions and research ongoing in terms of getting stakeholders together for the possibility of, forming, doing the groundwork for forming a possible e-council so that these matters we don't just have discussions at an IGF and then things are sort of dropped for the rest of the year, but there is an actual body representative of all the stakeholder groups that communicates with the stakeholder groups and with the government in order to ensure that the matters raised from an economic standpoint, from a social standpoint, the legislation, all of these things are followed up on and worked on to ensure that we actually progress and don't just talk about it. So hopefully you should be hearing some more about the outcomes from that sort of deliberative process shortly.
Just one more thing I'll add is that, what obviously came out today especially is that the internet we don't want all IT organizations in this multi-stakeholder group. Clearly there's room for activists, social activists, for the civil society, for private sector, for government, et cetera. And who else? Academics, of course, how could we forget them? So clearly that's what we want to bring together, because when we go to the global forum, that's what we see. So you get the issues represented from different viewpoints. So there may be business people who are not IT savvy, but they know there's an opportunity in the digital economy to do something, and they want to know how they can do that. And so we want to hear their views as well.
Just a follow-up comment to that, I just wanted to state that first and foremost, I'm a Caribbean internet end user, so I'll be more than happy to help for any of the initiatives that are going around the region. Especially when it comes to coordination, because I think coordination is one of the challenges, and also seeing where a topic that is close to me, how we can actually effectively work on regulatory issues for the internet that are appropriate to our environment. Not talking about just the tendency to form concrete or hard law, but what can be done in the regulatory space and what are some of the initiatives of self-regulation and co-regulation that occur across the Latin American and Caribbean region.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to add to what Kevin had said earlier. You know, I am thankful for being here. I really like to thank the organizers. This two-day forum was really, really, really well executed. As a IT and accounting student here at the university in the Faculty of Science and Technology, I welcome things like this. And I'm looking forward to want to enlighten my colleagues at school of other opportunities whereby we could take part. So for me, my main question really is, how can we help to add value to this? How can we be a part of the internet society? How can we play a role here?
I'm really glad you asked that. I work on campus as well. We, apart from, to become a member of the Internet Society Barbados chapter, go to isoc.org, sign up for membership. It is completely free. Once you've signed up for membership, just click on apply to join the Barbados chapter. We will, not turn you away unless you're on a terrorist watch list. So please join. We're hoping to, we're looking for membership, and please, our membership has to extend beyond the IT persons. We want, the internet is made up of users from all walks of life, and we need membership from all walks of life doing all sorts of things and not just technical people talking technical jargon. In addition to that, specifically because you mentioned you're on campus, we do quite a bit on campus in terms of when there are ICANN readouts and ISOC global sessions. We have some things we refer to as remote hubs where we try to publicize them on campus, where we invite students and staff to come and sit down and just learn what's going on. So we try to make it, and it's open to the public, it's not just open to the campus. So we're gonna try to publicize it more via the ISOC's website so that everybody can know these are things going on. Please come be a part of it. And we're looking forward to seeing some of you guys either physically or virtually taking part in more of these events so we can keep the, keep the momentum going.
I really need to respond to your comment. During the lunch break, Mr. Taylor said to me, next year we should have simultaneous sessions. We should have 2 rooms going so that people have more time for discussions. It's really not enough time. And I said to him that he's going to need 2 of me as well. We need help. It takes a lot to put on an event like this. It's long nights and lots of work, and we're lucky because our civil society work and our professional work with the government of Barbados has collided in this initiative. But the university is a partner, so yours as well. So all 3 of us, our 9 to 5 has collided with this IGF initiative, but we do need the help in order to make it bigger and better going forward, and to do all of to execute the best ideas coming out of these forums. We will need more boots on the ground. So join the chapter, come to the remote hubs, but I will also say, if any of the fellowships or ambassadorship programs that you heard about yesterday interest you, apply. The worst they can say is no. Next question. Oh, we have some questions from online.
Yes, online questions. Well, an online comment first and then a question. So the comment is from Melissa Richards. I think she's from Guyana. First of all, I must commend the Internet Society Barbados chapter for pulling off this event, and I must state that the timeliness of the sessions, it's commendable. And then we have a question from Gregory Skeet, who was here. He's from Barbados, and he was in here yesterday. Firstly, congrats to ISOC BB on a job well done to host this event. I'd like to know if there are any insurance companies in Barbados or the Caribbean which provide coverage for online businesses and assets.
Anybody work for an insurance company?
Oh.
Anybody who works for an insurance company that wants to take that question? Yeah, you can.
I don't know.
Lisa Evanson from Evanson Strategy Consultants, Inc. I've been asked to answer that question. I will not do that because I am no longer within the particular career field that has been mentioned, being insurance. However, I'm going to use that as a segue into my question. We have met here in a wonderful forum. It's been very productive, provoking. I think we're all on the edge of wanting to take some sort of action. So, when is ISOC BB or all of the other professional associations, and by professional associations, I am talking about all of our engineers, the insurance carriers all have a united association, the lawyers have their various associations, the architects have their associations. When are we, as professionals with this knowledge, going to stop mystifying it and demand a seat at the social partnership in Barbados and various similar agencies and various other governments so that we are there to help propel society?
Is that a question for Crystal or?
That's a question for everyone. Because you asked a question about insurance covering online business. Does insurance know how to cover online business or even how to, or the ramifications of it? That requires two experts in two different fields to sit down and talk to each other, because when the people who are looking at the actuaries are looking at the tables and doing all those things, the tables went back 27 years or however many, and they didn't start looking at online, and the research to take them forward is not going to exist, but they must look at their tables because their standards, their regulations, all of those things we won't know, and there are things that they won't know that we would have to educate them on. So the technical bodies need to be coming together, and I think the best forum for that would be like the social partnership. So we all get together, talk to each other, and talk to general society at the higher level where government is also there on the social partnership. So again, we don't reinvent the wheel, we just ask them if they could add a couple more seats to the table.
Okay, I'm going to answer that in two parts. With respect to ICT people getting a seat at the social partnership, perhaps, and unfortunately Philip Lewis isn't with us this evening, but the Barbados ICT Professional Association might be the sort of best placed organization in terms of representing ICT professionals to make representation where that's concerned. Separate from that is the whole matter of collaboration between stakeholders across the various sectors and inculcating digital strategies and technologies into their DNA and having that conversation, which is where the sort of digital council or e-council that I had mentioned earlier comes into play, where the idea being that we have all of the different stakeholder groups across all the different industries essentially be represented, and we speak to each of them, and each of them have a voice in determining what is the digital direction we want to take the country from a transformation standpoint, but also then it works in the other direction where they're educated. So it's an umbrella body that, much like the social partnership, bidirectional, that allows government, civil society, academia, the financial institutions to come together under an umbrella body that says, this is where we want to move Barbados from a digital and ICT standpoint. This is what each stakeholder group needs to, A, be aware of, and B, do. And we will give you the sort of technical support, training, development, capacity building, so that we as a nation don't have a bunch of different stakeholders moving in different directions according to their sort of own thing, but we as a nation move forward together in lockstep, which is, I think, what we need to do in order to catch and leapfrog, other nations, because we're not the only ones doing this. We need to get together.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to answer the call for help. We're happy to help you in any way.
Thank you.
Okay, brilliant.
Curtis Malver from Simplified Apps.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to
I was keen on hearing
my notes.
I thought Neeraj's intervention would have touched a bit on the sharing economy and the new disruptors in the market, but after, okay, no problem. Sorry, go ahead, Curtis.
Thank you. I know that two of the major problems facing our country now would be our debt and productivity. So I already think there's some ICT implementations that we can utilize. I think other countries would have done it similar to really assist us solving some of our issues. One of the suggestions that I like to make would be to look at utilizing open source software within government, at least more of it. A simple example would be to consider what if you were able to replace our Microsoft Office subscriptions with something like LibreOffice or OpenOffice, for example. Certainly it would require training and acceptance, but the cost savings would be real. And with the issues of debt, I think government having to find ways to mitigate its expenditure that is sensible, certainly open source software.
I think that was Microsoft cutting you off.
All good? Okay. The other thing to consider would be making it easier to build applications to assist the government so that I wouldn't have to go.
Yeah. I think the battery may be going. Yes. We can use it.
Great. So allowing government to have application program interfaces or APIs so that they can expose their data to developers like myself, and we can build technology to help facilitate government for the win-win, of course. It may have to be commercialized in some way, but certainly it can provide greater access to government services at a relatively cheap expense to government. It wouldn't cost them too much to expose their own data. At least I would think so. And now I've got the mic. The other thing is a little more advanced but doable, and that is the use of artificial intelligence and automation tools. We've got a lot of productivity issues, and some of what we're doing electronically can be automated. A lot of processes that have high repetition, for example, those can be automated very simply in some instances through implementing automation tools. So that's certainly an area that, or all three of the areas are areas that I'd be open to working with government on to assist in some way. But I think those three suggestions could help to reduce some of our expenditure and make us more productive at a very low cost. We just need the will to implement, and based on the people in this room, I think a lot of that will exist.
Thank you, Curtis.
Yeah? Okay, so since you asked me to particularly speak about the sharing economy, I'm happy to just define two words really quickly, because they're used a lot, and kind of showcase a case study that happened in 2007 versus one that happened in 2012. So technology is really just doing more with less, and economics is the study of decision-making in a resource-scarce environment. Barbados has very scarce resources, sometimes none. And when you look at 2007, what we had was a case where there was a Cricket World Cup. We spent $25 million on renting a cruise ship so that we can have 12,000 people come and stay in this cruise ship. It's called a floating hotel. And then we actually set up a fund, $5 million, to belong to Barbadian homes so we can host people. This was all for a 3-week event, I think it was. And there's a whole national effort behind this. And when you look at 2012, what happened in Brazil, they had their own version of this, the actual World Cup, the Football World Cup. And 1 in 5 people ended up staying at a Brazilian Airbnb. And this was at no cost to the government of Brazil. So the question that I really have for the government is, why is that not the case today when there's not a one-off event? There's no government support for Airbnbs on the island, whether they're HomeAway or sharing economy, bookings.com, you name it. And that's it, really. Anyone want to expand?
Noted. I am not aware of any formal policy with respect to Airbnb. And I believe one may be under consideration now. And it might be receiving the input of other industry stakeholders, such as the Hotel and Tourism Association, that may have their own views on how services like Airbnb are disrupting the market, and they call it disruption for a reason. You know, it doesn't sit well with everyone necessarily who may have vested interests. But I'm not aware from, as a citizen of Barbados, not speaking in any official capacity, of any policy with respect to that or other services like Uber and what's not. But clearly our regulations, we're very heavily regulated in terms of like taxi operators, the hotel sector. And I know it's something that obviously government must be struggling with because the argument is there's a loss in tax revenue, that, you know, how can you ensure that there are certain standards when people open their homes? How can that be regulated and protect the reputation of the industry, et cetera? But, you know, technology is disruptive, so it's going to move ahead while government struggles to get the right policy and the right positions in place. And hopefully Beta will be able to represent the interests of its stakeholders and help government in formulating sensible policy and sensible approach.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add something to Airbnb. Is it related? Okay, right. So from what I've read in your press, immediately the concern of the tourism people, the incumbents, is taxes. But really and truly, technology like Airbnb, you have to give it some time for it to, you know, filter through the society first before you become prescriptive upfront. So, but your minister, apparently, from his response, he's spot on. He's not so much about taxes up front, and I think that's the correct attitude at this point. But there's a lesson we can learn from Cuba. In Cuba, had long before Airbnb came in, they had this sort of model called Casa Particular, which is, there was 2 minimum standards for home accommodation, which was well established, and you get certified. And what happened, that standard, when that met the Airbnb platform, Cuba just took off immediately because they already had minimum standards for home accommodation that were well established. So maybe one opportunity for policy intervention in Barbados, not so much on the taxing side, but maybe to establish minimum standards similar to Casa Particular model that they have in Cuba. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I would just say that I don't think that taxation necessarily would kill the sharing economy here in Barbados. I think bad regulations or over-regulating the sector would. So there's nothing wrong with government necessarily wanting a piece of the pie. But so I don't think that would kill it. I mean, there are other jurisdictions, you go book Airbnb, you pay taxes, right? But I think over-regulating it and imposing, you know, conditions that persons who are sharing their homes cannot meet, then that is, I think, more devastating than the imposition of a tax.
Do I have to announce myself again?
Yes.
Lisa Evanson, Evanson Strategy Consultants again. If we go through these 2 days and try to build a word cloud, I think the top 3 words would be policy, legislation, and regulation. To the best of gathering from the information given, the beliefs shared in this room, the knowledge shared in this room, is legislation the sole shackle that is holding back an explosion, much like the Silicon Valley?
So I really don't think it's that simple. I think that if there's something holding us back, so to speak, it's multifaceted. But legislation does play a big role, because I'm not going to take my life savings and invest it into a business that's in a legal gray area without knowing that I'm not going to lose my shirt or my freedom, for that matter. Because if what you're doing is not legal, then you run the risk of, I guess, running afoul of the law. So I think that, yes, we did speak a lot about legislation here, but it's a big component. And there was one aspect of that legislation conversation that didn't really come out to me, which was we don't have a environment that encourages a 17-year-old to create the next big app. And it's a legislation problem because it has to do with the laws that govern how you get a license to offer the public telecommunication services, for instance. Those rules are complex. Those rules are exhaustive. And in some cases, it's expensive to start a tech business in Barbados. We need legislation to fix that. So if there's a cultural issue, for instance, if we don't have a culture of encouraging our 17-year-olds to create the biggest app, I personally think that that's arguable, because I've met some 17-year-olds that are amazing. But if that is the case, then you still need to fix the legislation problem.
Can I also quickly mention that when you read through, for example, the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index, one of the factors that Barbados is always rated really low on is access to venture capital. That is another factor that we have to take into account if we want to start building businesses of scale. I had been taking a course, and one of the things that they mentioned is Silicon Valley venture capitalists look to invest, by and large, on average, about $10 million US in a company. Their expectation in terms of scaling is within 3 to 5 years, they want to make back 10 times their investment. Think about that. And think about that in our context. Access to that level of capital and expecting that level of growth means that you have to be looking global from day one, and you have to be growing like a weed from day one. And that is something that I think we need to tackle culturally, we need to tackle in terms of access to capital, and we need to tackle from an educational standpoint. So I just want to add that. Thanks.
Next.
Thank you.
Next comment?
Over here.
Question?
Over here. Thank you.
Hi, Dion.
Hi. Two things I want to talk about. First is public awareness. Now, coming out of all the comments that have been made, at the core of us moving forward is to have a well-structured and implemented public awareness campaign to drive the level of awareness from primary school all the way up through secondary, for our PSs, our parliamentary reps, the ministers, the prime minister. There needs to be a a well-structured, funded entity. Now, from what I've heard here today, there are pockets of people doing little things, yeah? And it all comes under awareness. What I would like to share with you is back in 2013, the Caribbean, and I forgot to introduce myself, I'm Dion Olton from the Caribbean Cybersecurity Center. Back in 2013, the Caribbean Cybersecurity Center started Think, Click, Serve. I hear we bandering around Stop, Think, Connect. I would like us to stop talking about Stop, Think, Connect and look at endorsing a homegrown campaign, which is holistic. Go to the website, www.thinkclickserve.net. Launched in Curacao in 2013 in 3 languages, English, Dutch, and Papiamento, right? And has been recognized by the Ministry of Education here in Barbados. We've been out to schools and done what you all are trying to do now, but we stopped because we recognized we're going to hit a wall. We cannot go into the schools, all the schools, and push, all this information because it requires resources. Resources, not just people resources, but also funding, right? The ISSA, while your efforts are valiant, right? I must commend you. You're going to run into a wall. So what we started to do is, and I encourage you all and embrace you all, we can sit down and talk about it and see how we can move that whole thing forward, right? What I encourage you to do is rather than trying to think of going into schools, put it in the schools. So we have started to talk to the Ministry of Education about creating a curriculum, and all these schools have an IT administrator. They're teaching our kids about what's a monitor, what's a CPU. Our kids pass that, right? Our kids are using tablets. My 7-year-old, you see him with a tablet. He knows when he was like 3, 4, he used to go to Amazon.com and he had a wish list for Christmas, right? At 3, 4, kid you not. I think he's even smarter than me, right? So I'm saying, rather than beat our head against the wall and try to get that, there's an easier way. The school administrators, the IT administrators, every school has one. Push the content, create the curriculum, push it there, and then you roll it out into the schools. I think that's the best way to go, right? That's the first thing. So the public awareness, I think I'll embrace anyone who has a campaign, right, who wants to work with us to push it, because it's for the national good. First thing. The second thing I want to talk about is kind of related, but not necessarily. Synchronization of efforts. So this thing called cybersecurity and information security, the fastest way we can get to a much more secure Barbados is not necessarily waiting on legislation, right? Technology is like water, running down a hill. It will find the easiest path to get where it needs to settle, right? We need to take that idea and understand that while the legislation is necessary, right? Because if someone contravenes or breaks the law, you want the legislation to be in place for that purpose. But while we need to do the things we need to do, we can't be held captive by government or the parties within government who are responsible for... am I going too long?
Yes.
I'll wrap up. Right? So you can't be held captive by that, because the guy from the Solicitor General's office yesterday, he said that it took 100 years for some law to be enacted. I mean, we can't wait 100 years, right? Because this thing is moving too fast. By the time we get any draft bills or any draft legislation in place, it's going to be obsolete. The Computer Misuse Act is dated as it is. We need to stop waiting. And I kind of deviate from my word of synchronization because there are a lot of things going on. So we have a national cert that we're looking to implement, but we don't have a national cybersecurity strategy for Barbados. So when you put a cert in place and nobody knows if you have a problem to call the cert, you're wasting time. So there needs to be, I think we need to start at the beginning. We need to understand the actual roadmap that's required to get us where we need to be, develop that, put that in place, and then we have proper synchronization of efforts, and then we can take advantage of the investments that we're going to make in going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dion.
Hi, good evening again. Dev Gosain from TT Mag. But actually, the reason why I took the mic is because I'm going to wear my other hat. I'm also the vice principal of Naparima College. If anybody Google it, you'd realize that it's one of the top schools in the Caribbean in terms of scholarships and all that kind of whatever it is, awards from CXC. Anyhow, one thing I want to mention, I want to go back to something that Ashel had said, that we keep waiting on legislation. People, and even the last speaker alluded to it as well. At NAPS, we say our best practice will be our next practice. So what we do is that we completely reinvent, we always reinventing ourselves, okay? I think this is where education has to go. We can't wait on collaboration, we can't wait on a unison and whatnot. We look at, and I like the model that was used this morning, the sandboxes, okay? You have sandboxes in various education, are you going to use the school? And I'd mention your point because you had said that there are people who write in good apps. I'll give you a situation that happened just last year. We know that there's money in apps. We started digital and game design, a CAPE subject, without approval from the ministry. Take a chance. After 2 months, we tell the university, tell the ministry, that we have 5 students sign up for gaming and digital animation and game design. You tell them no. They give us the approval. So sometimes you have to be bold and in your face and take a chance. If you decide to sit in your comfort zone every day, nothing is achieved. Okay? I'll give you a little snapshot of what we do in educationally. And I'm going back, so just have about a minute. The thing is that a couple of years ago in a previous incarnation of government, they gave out 20,000 laptops every year because that's how much students write in the examination to go from primary to secondary school. Every man, Tom, Dick, and Lal, Bihari get a laptop. Anyhow, that backfired because what happened, the infrastructure was not there. So we have some of the better male students in the country. Everybody walk with a laptop and somebody walk with a modem. Access point. And they play games all day. Okay? So the fact of the matter is that what we decide to do, before we actually, now we actually having on the Smart School project. If you check naparimacollege.org, scroll on the site, and you'll see the Smart School concept. And in that concept, we have, everything is going to be smart down to power and all. You walk in a room, the lights come on. Okay? That is where we're going to. And I like the idea is that, people looking for parity, you have to think not just beyond the box, but some of the other boxes that you might encounter. Okay? Very good point. And that is exactly the kind of thinking that we should have as Caribbean people. Not just be there and accept, oh, so they're doing this, so they're doing this, so we'll catch up with all you. By the time we catch up with them, they're 10 miles ahead of us again. Okay? So we have to look and see exactly what we want. So what we did at NAPS? Well, what we did is that we partnered with an organization, I wouldn't want to call names, and they sponsored, they gave us about $1 million worth of equipment and internet infrastructure and optical fiber into the school and whatever else. And we have now in the process of using a learning management system. I am here. I could actually go and see, I could send an assignment out to a class. It's online. I have my own videos that I have done. And I could actually see who looked at it. I could actually send out an assignment, see who did the assignment. I could be down on the beach and see who did the assignment when. I could set a quiz that will start at 7 o'clock tonight for 30 minutes. And after that, the time is up. Okay? So the idea is that now what we are doing is that we look at the needs of the staff and we tailor the educational needs, because somebody's right. The Ministry of Education will teach you about wikis and vocis and teach you how to monitor and all this kind of thing. The staff need that. Okay? I did a number of professional developments in various schools. And you do things like, for example, a Google form. A very simple and effective way of writing an exam. So the point I want to make is that there's relevance in Number one, yes, we could give education, but in a snapshot, there's a very simple way of managing that. Find out where we are. Find out where we want to be. Do a gap analysis. Work out the elements that will get you from where you are to where you want to be, and implement them. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, are there any comments from our colleagues online? No? Okay, well, with that, we will wrap up the open forum. Oh, we have one more.
Well, I guess we could wrap up with some good news. There is some legislation. Our government hasn't, well, I don't think our government really has promoted it as much as they should have. But from just 2 years ago, the culture industries bill had been passed, and Section 31 of that says that any investor that invests in an approved cultural practitioner is able to deduct 100% of that investment from their assessable income. So if your tax exposure is 20%, at the end of year 5, you should get back 100% of your investment. If your tax exposure is greater, you should get back more. But that legislation provides something that Barbadians, I think, should appreciate, and that is tax exemption, since this is a period where we've experienced larger taxation. So the legislation allows for investment in cultural practitioners, and ICT developers fall underneath that umbrella. So if you're a software app developer, that legislation applies to you. I'm an approved cultural practitioner. I got my certificate from them in 2015, November 2015, I believe. So that legislation has benefit for everyone in the room paying taxes. If you ever wanted a special tax break, and there is no cap. So if you are extremely liquid and you invested, say, $50,000, guess what? You can deduct that total $50,000. I don't think there's ever been a tax credit as large as that because there is no cap. And I'll end by highlighting that there is some additional legislation for external investment support through Caribbean Export. I know there's one or two inside this room right now that would have benefited from that because they've got two channels: an investment readiness grant that grants up to $50,000 for development, and there's a co-investment grant, which I think is extremely beneficial. So any investor that invests in an entrepreneur, Caribbean Export, once you go through their process, they will contribute 50% of that investment to the entrepreneur. So there's risk mitigation and further assistance. If you combine both the Section 31 legislation and the Caribbean Export, I think any investor now has a very high level of risk mitigation. Maybe Crystal Howell could talk on the Culture Industries Bill, Section 31 at some point, and give some greater clarity to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. One last comment from Shernan Osipo.
Very short. Basically, I haven't heard much being said, let's say, from the local domain.bb. I'm just wondering, what can be done, let's say, for example, to promote the usage of this domain and maybe to contribute more to the local internet economy. So I would like to know if there is a possibility for you guys to use it more to promote local internet economy.
Anybody here from the telecom unit? No? Okay, Shernan, we will connect you. Unfortunately for you, our colleague Alicia is studying overseas. But that's something that's a discussion that we can have when we have somebody from telecoms. Right? Okay, guys, thank you. That's the open forum.